my name is Tara Bentley, and I'm the Executive Director for the Indiana Association of Home Educators, otherwise known as the IAHE.
And my name is Courtney Nalin. I am a homeschooling mom of two who also works full-time outside of my home and a volunteer with the IAHE.
Together, we're your co-hosts for Season 2 of the Homeschool Indiana podcast. We'll be here each week sharing information to help you homeschool, keep you updated on what you need to know, and have some fun along the way. So, let's get started.
Hello, everyone. This is Courtney. Tara is not with me today, but I am with the lovely Amanda Owens, and you are going to love her as much as I do. She is someone that equips homeschool parents so they can teach their children how to talk clearly and confidently through speech therapy at home. She's a homeschool graduate and a mom. She builds practical tools for parents, teaches how speech therapy works, and supports a growing community of parents. So, Amanda, thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm actually really excited too. I know we discussed right before we came on that we had a great experience with each other last year at the IAHE conference. So when I knew it was going to be you, I knew it was going to be a really good time.
For those that don't know you, would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself with your background with being a homeschool graduate? Okay. We don't ever really talk too much to those people because they kind of disappear, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've wondered about why that might be. And I think that homeschool graduates, they just like any other human being, they get into life and they start doing life. And until they have children that they are homeschooling, they don't necessarily resurface back in the homeschool community because they're out doing things in the real world. We're prepared for it. So we just go do it.
Sure.
Right. So that's kind of my theory on that one. But yeah, so I actually started out in Christian school. My grandparents had started a Christian school in the Indianapolis area. So I started there. And when my family moved, I moved to a different Christian school. So I went from private school to private school through till 7th grade. Then I had one delightful semester in public school before my mom was like, I think I'm going to see about getting a job again. And I'm going to get myself, the funding to get you back into Christian school. I finished up my 7th grade year and she's like, okay, this is expensive. I'm still going to work, but we're going to homeschool you. And I was like, what is this homeschooling? Because I didn't know what it was. And she had just been chatting with some different people from different churches that we knew. We went to a lot of different churches, so we experienced a lot of people, and some of them were homeschoolers. And my mom was deeply intrigued by the fact that I could get a private education, a very private education, without Christian school tuition. And both of my parents are working parents. Both of my parents are wonderful and lovely. However, they had a lot on their plates and a lot of personal projects. And so we started with a school curriculum that allowed me to just do things on my computer. It was offline back then because that was in the dark ages. Right. I most definitely would just get myself onto the computer and I downloaded the program, or not downloaded. I used my little CD-ROMs and put the stuff on my computer myself. I got a computer out of the deal. Total win.
Yeah.
And I worked my way through the curriculum for 8th grade year. And we stuck with the same curriculum for 9th grade year. And again, I worked myself through the curriculum. My parents did not grade my tests. My parents did not see what I did or did not complete. They just saw whatever, I showed them when I was like, hey, you guys haven't checked in a while. You want to see what the computer says I got on my grade? And they would always be, very encouraging in that, like, oh, good job. Yeah, that's a B, that's an A or whatnot. They had their other things that they were doing. And so it was really, really deeply independent. And then when I got to high school, I was like, hey, to sophomore year of high school, I was like, hey, can I try a different curriculum? I really love book learning. And I'm a computer nerd. I played a lot of video games back then, obviously.
Love it.
And I had my computer and I had a lot of free time because I was getting my schoolwork done so quickly. But then I was like, I would really like to do book school. I remembered just devouring textbooks while I was at the Christian school. And I was like, I love a textbook. Can I have a textbook? And so my parents, they did the big purchase. And each year They'd hand me the credit card and I'd purchase my next set of curriculum from the company. And that's how I finished out, actually. So yeah, I'm not necessarily sharing any specific curriculums, but it was that independent. They did a lot of things that were extracurricular with me. And when I was like, hey, I am stuck with writing, I knew I could go to my dad because he's a really good writer. And a great editor. He actually still edits my stuff. The article that I made for the IHE Informer, my dad was my editor for that before we sent it off to the wonderful IHE editor. But then my mom, she started a sports team so that I could play on it.
Wow. What was the sport?
A volleyball. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So she started a team. She first had me in an already existing volleyball group. And some of the moms approached her and they were like, Liz, you could coach and you're cheap like us. How do we do this without buying bags, warm-up suits, and really expensive gym rentals? How do we get the girls playing, get the girls competing without all of the money behind it? Mm-hmm. And my mom was like, sure, doing this thing. And she created a group, and within their first year, they were undefeated in the Christian School Athletic Conference.
That's awesome.
Beat them handily.
Yes.
I was not on that team. I do not have that. But I thought that was pretty cool that my mom did that. And she really enjoyed it. I think she got a lot of joy out of it too.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that it just kind of fits right in with homeschool parents in general. I've talked to a lot of people, and even me at the beginning, homeschooling was not on my radar to do. And then once it was on my radar, I even thought, I don't know that I can do this. Like, what about all the things? What about all the activities? Will they miss out on all the things? And then once you dive into it, there's no missing out. We have to say no so many times because we want to do all the things.
Yes.
I have told people before, if you look at all of the co-ops or the groups, the sports teams, that any of those things that have gotten started in your even local homeschool community, they were started because there was a homeschool parent, typically the mom, but you never know. But they start out because they want something for their kid that's not available. And so they're like, okay, well, this is what we're going to do. Or they meet a few other moms that are like, I wish that we could do X, Y, Z. And then they're like, let's do it together. And
yes.
I love it that it's not even just if you have somebody like you were very much like you could do that independent stuff on your own and it was good, but it wasn't like they didn't care. It was just that you were good to go. They were doing their thing. And when you needed help, then they were going to help you. And then I think that shows a lot for even as homeschool parents, we hope that our kids will raise up to be good people in the community and be self-starters and, all those things. And so that's a good example of it can actually work the way that people think that it should work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think so many times as homeschool parents, we are so afraid of not measuring up, our children missing out. And for me as a second generation homeschooler, I feel like I come into it with so much more confidence. I had curriculum. I had no co-op. There were people around me doing co-ops. We didn't do co-ops. I did way many other life experiences that were really cool that basically were me tagging along with my parents' personal projects. Like my mom did short films. I got to be on crews for short films in high school. That's a totally wild life experience. I had lots of friends who had co-ops that they connected, with those people and they are still friends with them now. And that is a treasure. But then what I had was a treasure too. And there's going to be different pathways for different homeschoolers and different homeschool families. And just because your family doesn't follow the traditional rhythm doesn't mean there's not worth in the rhythm that you have.
Right.
I was involved in so much music because of my dad. I got to, do the volleyball and get to see all the behind the scenes of the Christian School Athletic Conference because I got to go to all the meetings. I got to be behind the scenes for, large churches as they were running concerts for newsboys and things like that. Cause I got to volunteer with those things. I got to be in the planning committees, not because I was on the planning committees, but because I was homeschooled. So I got to tag along with my mom and got to see leadership at work, which was really kind of cool. And I love that too. So I love just how you were sharing that. We do worry sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
About what, but there are so many options. There's so many options.
So many. And it can be overwhelming if you can just kind of say, okay, we're just going to do one thing at a time. Let's just figure out our own rhythm for our own family, and then let's see what's out there. But I love how wonderful it can be because you're learning through life, and what a perfect way to raise a child. It doesn't mean that everything's always like easy. It is not. There have been plenty of times in all the years that we've now been homeschooling that there has been lots of tears, and it's usually been mine. But just like that second guessing and thinking like, oh my goodness, I am totally failing this. But even as moms, even if my kids were in traditional school, as parents, you just automatically think, am I totally failing them because have I spent enough time with them? Are they getting enough experience? Are they doing too much? Are they not doing enough? That's typical parents, their feelings. And I think that whenever we do worry as parents in general, it's because we do care and we love them. And whenever we can get out of our own way and remember that we're not going to fail our kids because we love them the most, and we're going to see what's not working in our homeschool, like in homeschooling, if their learning style changes, then we're going to figure it out. And if that season of life is busier, then we're going to figure that out. But learning through life together is just, I think it's an incredible way to do it. I feel sad for people that don't have that opportunity sometimes.
I think one of the saddest things for me when I was working in public schools, and again, this is coming from someone who was in Christian schools. I had a very, very brief stint in public schools, which actually my time in public school was less. I was bullied less than I was at Christian school, both of them and whatnot. But one of the things that I come back to is when I was working in public schools, those children being away from home all day long.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, in order to make sure that they were being enough, because you're right, no matter whether or not a parent is a homeschooler or a public schooler or a Christian school parent, they always question whether or not they're doing enough. Always, always. I've had so many conferences with so many parents. That is a common thread with parenthood. And they always question that. And so they're putting their kids in more and more things, and children are exhausted. Children are dysregulated. Children don't have any time to just be in a space without either entertainment or a task to do. And sometimes it's busy work and it doesn't allow them time to breathe or be in their own head for any period of time. I relish the memories of me being able to just sit there and stare out my window because school was done and it was, 4 or 5 hours until volleyball or whatever other thing we were doing that day. And to just enjoy the peace of that. Our children have a whole lifespan to work, and for them to tank up on a little bit of peace and to know what that looks like.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal. So
I completely agree. And I think that it's equally important as parents to, as hard as it is, showing it as an example to our children that we don't also always have to be on our phones, going and doing the things. And it's so difficult, especially when I feel like when you're homeschooling, because as somebody who does work full time outside of the home, I'm working long hours. It's even difficult for me to get home after 24-hour shifts and switch hats. Be like, okay, I was this and now I'm the mom and now we're going to do the homeschooling and then we're going to go do the things. And then in the evening, we're going to be the wife and we're going to continue being the mom, the non-homeschool mom, just a mom. But I'm also going to do all these other things. So part of that is just life. But I think that there is beauty in that at times whenever your kids can see, whenever you are doing things that you're passionate about, that is a life lesson. But also seeing you as an example of what it means to just to be in the moment and not feeling like you have to constantly be doing something. Because you're so right. I mean, that's spot on. It's almost like there's a lot of stuff that's just busy work. And so we don't allow our kids to have a moment where nothing else is being done. I also loved daydreaming. I was in public school through high school, and I don't know that I really paid attention too much in class because on a lovely day, I wanted to look out the window. Like, who wants to sit there and listen to a lecture? I want to be outside and listen to the birds.
Away with that more in public school. I don't know about you. In Christian school, I was in trouble all the time. They'd be like, Amanda, what are you doing? We are on page 52. And I'd be like, where am I? Where am I? And then I'd be like, oh, I'm on a page 329. And they're like, yes, in the 8th grade textbook. And I'd be like, oh, this is, what are we doing?
So sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm reading ahead. My bad. Right. I read these textbooks the first week of class. So what did you expect me to do? Reading them for a third time?
Right. See, my teachers would sit there and they were the ones that said, we are not here to socialize, which is also funny whenever you have people that say, well, how will homeschoolers socialize? I was told all the time, you're not here to socialize. You're here to do the work. And looking back now, knowing what I know now, that learning environment, that wasn't my learning style. I loved to read, but to just sit at the desk and memorize to push out facts for a test to pass it. And now, I will say though, now I'm learning all kinds of stuff with my kids. And I tell them, I don't know if I just didn't ever know this, like if I was never taught it, or if it was something that my brain deemed unimportant. And so it just dumped it out. Or if I just truly wasn't paying attention.
Or it's because you learned the skill that's required in school. And the skill that's required in school is remember this for long enough to show that you remembered it. Done.
That's very
and
true.
Dispose of it as quickly as possible so that you can focus on the next thing.
Right.
And if they build upon each other, you might retain a little bit more for a little bit longer. But the simple fact of it is there's not a whole lot of push for real retention. You're learning to listen, you're learning to be quiet, and you're learning to take tests.
Yeah.
I'm a
very
pretty
boring.
good test taker. And
I am not.
I look forward to learning how to learn again. Although I feel like my high school experience was that. I wanted to spend time doing Punnett squares because I was really enjoying biology. My brother and I created a game using a risk board to study the effect of various genetics using a Punnett square over the course of generations.
That is so
Because that's what you do when you're homeschooled. You have, really weird hobbies that are embarrassing until you realize how cool it actually is.
And you never know, like whenever you let them explore those kind of things and do things that are outside of the box, you never know those little things that they're learning or doing. It's setting them up for actually what God has planned for their life. We just don't know it yet.
Absolutely.
So, and actually, I was going to ask you, speaking of that, at what point was it in high school with you learning or getting involved in doing speech therapy? Was that something that was connected? Like looking back now? Okay, so then how did that happen?
It did teach me some features. So one of the biggest things that my mom gifted me with was experience with a wide variety of humans. And then my mom, she really pushed me to be around people. And she made me spend time with other people. Now, this sounds like a dig on a homeschooling. I was always socially anxious, and homeschooling actually gave me the breath of life that I needed to regulate. And that made me much more ready to do normal things. I think if I would have gone to a normal high school, I cannot even imagine what my mental health would have been, to be quite honest, after that. Just judging how it was even for 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. So I'm really grateful for that. But she gave me a lot of opportunities. And I loved connecting with adults much more than teenagers my own age, just because teenagers my own age did not make a whole lot of sense, especially when they came from different places and whatnot. But she had me do voice lessons. And I truly believe that God kind of, used that experience to make me into the personality that I needed to have. I had a lot of time in quiet as a high schooler. So I had a lot of time in prayer and a lot of time going from youth group to youth group because my mom wanted me to be involved. And so I would listen to things. I would have time in prayer and I'd be like, Lord, what do you want me to do? And he's like, talk to people. And I was like, oh,
are you sure?
How about I just get a really bookish, field and I just, I research. I could write a book. That looks really good. And he's like, no, do this. And so I ended up singing. My undergraduate was in music performance, voice, which is soul bearing. And nothing prepares you for being in touch with large amounts of humanity so much as sitting in front of 60 of your best friends and worst critics as you sing a piece in a foreign language while multiple people pick you apart and make you change what you're doing in front of all of them while you're doing it.
Amen.
That was life-changing. And I realized, I had such a spirit of fear, and perfect love casts out all fear. And I needed to change. I needed to reach out because I loved people. So I started talking to people more and more and more out of a spirit of love. And that performance was a great opportunity to work on my anxiety, all sorts of different things. And so then, God led me to speech therapy and becoming a public speaker. Oh my goodness. How was that supposed to work out, right? If you would have told 16-year-old me, I would have snort laughed and then probably cried by myself, to be quite honest. And I know that that path was used. It was very well used. And so sometimes people ask me, oh, so, did voice make you want to become a speech therapist so you could work with like professional voice users? Like, nope. What happened is I realized while I was doing the performance, I loved how God had used it to change me and to give me opportunity to connect with people that I still connect with now. God used it as a refiner's fire for me. It was such a great experience that 4-year. But then afterwards, I realized I didn't want to travel the world and be famous, which was, I think, a very big letdown to some people very close to me and some people at that performance school. Because, they had expectations. I got into a master's program for operatic voice and I turned it down because I realized that I didn't want that lifestyle. I was finally brave enough to say, I want home. I want to be a mom and I want home. And I had seen all sorts of wonderful professors, live their lives totally separate from their families and never see them. And I was like, I don't want that. And then I was like, and I have a lot of student debt. So what are we going to do now? So I was like, what about music administration? Business plus that. I love people. I love negotiating. I love networking. Why don't I do something like that? I love putting out fires. I like working with difficult people, like a prima donna. Sign me up for that. I do. And so that's when God put a really badly designed website in front of me so that I would eventually work with toddlers and small children because they are prima donnas in the best sense.
Yes.
And music administration was on the same website as speech language pathology. And I had been cruising the internet forever because I love to research. And I was like, what is speech language pathology? And I started reading it. And I was like, oh my goodness, I think this is it. And so like any good independent go-getter, I educated myself for a high school homeschooler. I looked for the nearest universities for it, scheduled myself a day for visitation to shadow, and absolutely fell in love. And I signed up my applications, got everything in order to make sure that I could meet my prerequisites and be able to do my master's in the 2.5 years instead of taking an additional year of prerequisites within the program. And it worked out really beautifully. And I'm so grateful that God arranged it. But that's how I ended up in speech language pathology.
Wow. I love seeing the dots connect. You don't even think, like you said, 16-year-old you, absolutely not. You'd rather crawl underneath a rock. Why would you go that route?
I might have been a very mild, meekly mannered homeschool mother instead of the very playful and exciting one.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, you know what? But playing is fine. It's good to be playful. And it helps, especially, I'm sure, whenever you do stuff with speech therapy, to be able to do that. Who wants to sit there as a small child and work with somebody that's super serious?
It doesn't work out very well. I have to be honest. Usually I'll have to be like, all right, and now that we're done, maybe I can talk to mommy for 5 minutes. And then I'll be like, okay, mom, so the test scores that we got, this is what we got. Because otherwise, all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, she's not Miss Rachel. She's not the kid show version of her. I don't trust this. But
right.
Yeah, it's true.
That's
because
so
some of the
funny.
kids to keep a very high paced, high energy level for them to connect. So I work with a lot of families that have different learners. I work with a lot of children with very significant special needs. I'm talking Down syndrome. I'm talking significant support needs related to autism. I'm talking seizure disorders. I'm talking cerebral palsy. I'm talking about so many different things. But then I'm also talking kids with, as Tim Hawkins, the comedian, says, allergies, the ones who are high energy. Oh, they have allergies, right? Kids who love to move, which is every developmentally appropriate kid ever, right? So much about education is so sit down. In reality, we learn best while on the move. We learn best in real life. We learn best in play. And too many moms feel guilty about that. Plan for play in such a way that it stays play. Because if it stops being play, it is not getting all the benefit of play anymore. And what's the point, right? But then it also, if you're a parent who does not play to learn confidently, you feel confident. My child is absolutely learning. And if you ever have to, you can show what they've learned.
So many people I see just on even social media that they're concerned that, and I mean, again, we all have those concerns about is it enough? And of course, as they get older, it's a little bit harder to make it play necessarily, but there's still hands-on stuff, and it's still another form of it. But I know that there's so many people that they think because they're in that traditional school mind frame that they think that learning and school has to look a certain way and it has to look the way that they experienced it in traditional school. And so if it's anything less than that, then they're dropping the ball somewhere, or they don't know how to feel confident that their child is in fact learning. We can tell them as veteran homeschool moms all day long, your 5-year-old doesn't need to do a full-blown all-in-one curriculum. Let them play. But they just can't get out of their own head. And I understand that.
Especially if somebody else is in their head too.
Yes.
That's always exciting.
You already kind of talked about you being self-directed.
I know there's going to be people who are like, well, how do you know they're really prepared? I'm like, well, how do you know they're really prepared otherwise? And, keep tabs as much as you want to. And how do you know that your child is the right child to do this? Me and my brother both did this. My brother did it from a much younger age, and both of us did well in college. My brother got a full ride scholarship to 2 different universities, and one of them legitimately, the one he picked, legitimately paid him to go there instead of the other full ride. So he left because he chose to live at home. He left with a considerable amount in his savings account to start life off. And that's a total possibility. We both were well prepared. But I think both of us, even though we have very different personalities, we had a couple key features that made it a good fit for us. Because I don't know that it would necessarily be a good fit for everyone. To tie in the 2 different things that I'm doing, the one that I was like, oh man, if I could go back to high school, do my self-directed high school, and what I would do differently is that I would actually infuse some play into it, knowing what I know now. Because as you get older, play changes. I have an uncle his idea of play is owning a Pepperidge Farm route. He's a high-level executive in a pharmaceutical company. His idea of funsies is running a business because, we all have our Sudoku, right? And I think about high school, how I would love to have had a side project. I don't know what it would have been, but I really think having independent projects can be a way that even high schoolers can play, and that prepares you for future life. I'm also to the point where I think every child should learn how a business is run, just because not every human being is meant to be a W-2. Not everybody is meant to work for a corporation. Sometimes people need to be able to be independent, and that's a life skill.
Yeah, I think it's great whenever you go all the way through high school, whenever you graduate. At that time, it was you already knew once you graduate, you go to college and then you go out into the workforce. And at some point in there, you get married, you have kids. It's the book. And you see yes, that's what I was doing. I went to high school. I went to college. I did the music performance with the concentration in vocals and all things. And I loved it. I loved music. But then people have even come back later whenever they find out that I went to school for that initially. Now working as a paramedic and EMS, they're I'm listening to my patients. It's fine. And I actually
time. There is no time that's wasting time.
No, because I also learned that music helps relax my brain. So whenever I'm in a critical situation, I know that for myself, I can sing or hum in a stressful situation, and that calms me down so that I can focus and do what I need to do. But anyway, I just think that because I didn't know what all was out there, I knew that I loved music. I knew that I loved singing, but I didn't know even what that meant that was out there that I could do. Granted, at the time, it wasn't at your fingertips. It wasn't like it is now. There's no accidents. It was all a plan, and it got me to this point, right? But I just think that sometimes it's important for our kids to learn what all is out there, that they might think that some little small interest that they have is just like a little hobby, or just like a little, they're being hyper-focused on something. And I have a lot of hyper-focuses with myself. So I understand that, but you never know. I think that it says a lot about a parent whenever they are able to embrace that and help their child see that, hey, keep on going that route. If you're curious about the things, and explore it, figure it out, look into it, do all the things. And then if you get tired of it and you move on, you find something else, and that's okay too. Just this is the perfect time of your life to explore and to try and fail. So learning how to run a business, how to be an entrepreneur, all of that, even if you never are an actual entrepreneur, those skills and that knowledge will also, I think, help you be a part. If you go into the workforce and you have a boss, you can understand a little bit more about what's involved in it, or even like where you might want to fit in that type of a workforce area.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, when you have 4 years and you're homeschooling, and let's say your schoolwork takes you, for me, an average of 3 hours, which that's not everybody's story. If it takes you an average of 3 hours each school day and you have 180 to 185 school days, that is a lot of opportunity to get involved in things that are not just camps. Not everybody's meant to be a summer camp counselor. That are not just youth groups, because not everybody is meant to and called to be a youth pastor. Although that's not saying, don't get involved in youth groups. I'm a big multi-generational kind of person, so I won't get on that soapbox. Just because, like a true homeschooler, I believe that we are meant to be together. The older women are supposed to teach the younger women. The younger women are supposed to, be there too. So it's just like all those different things. But it's a lot of opportunity to get involved in something. I know a homeschooler right now, cute kid, love this kid. And he's doing a duck business. He's 9.
Wow. That's amazing.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, have fun with it. My daughter does a crochet business and she came up with the name for it all on her own. And whenever she told me the name of her business, I was like, where'd you get that idea? And she goes, I came up with it myself. And I was like, you didn't hear it somewhere, read it somewhere? And she goes, oh, no, but is it not okay? I go, no, actually, that's really good. And I feel like it is so good that's why I'm surprised that it wasn't already thought of, because that is so good. But it's been a fun thing for her to do. And now she gets to participate, and we do a Kidpreneur Day twice a year now.
Cool.
And so all the kids get to come together, and some of them just want to make some things, and they're cute little things. Other kids, man, they had some talent. We got like different kinds of baking things. We've got canning stuff. We've got artwork. And there's one kid that does lemon shake-ups and has different flavors, and then also does popcorn and cotton candy and a full-fledged business.
Yes.
I'm just blown away.
Homeschool
kids are so good.
I love it so much. I've actually thought about like, what if I did like all right, guys, I'm going to teach a webinar on how to start a business to little people, because it's so easy to do now. It's so easy to do now. And it's such a life skill, because even if you, like you said, you don't end up being a business owner, it can teach you how to advocate for yourself. It can teach you where to have boundaries with your creativity. It can teach you a lot of executive functioning skills. So planning, prioritization, problem solving, all those big life skills in a smaller container that's easier for you to not be completely emotionally connected to, so that you can be more objective in your decisions, and then also objective in your self-critique and your awareness. And I think it's such a good skill.
I'm here for it. I support it 100%.
Yay.
So, I guess we need to wrap it up, unfortunately, but here we are. I'm going to give you some rapid fire questions.
Very exciting.
All right. So question number 1, favorite food whenever you have to have something in about the last 5 minutes of your day.
This is going to be totally no fun. Like, this is boring. I don't eat in the last 5 minutes of my day. I'd rather be hungry, because otherwise I know that food is just sitting on my tummy.
So question number 2, favorite song to listen to get you pumped up?
That really depends on the day. My kids have learned that there are opera days, there are musical days, there are hymn days, and there's good old fashioned, like, we listened to the breakfast song by Newsboys the other day at breakfast with my kids. That one's a good one too. So yeah.
That's good that my sisters and I were laughing. We are pastors' kids as well, so we always got sung to wake up in the mornings, especially for Sunday mornings at church. And so the rise and shine and give God the glory. And it was like, my mom would come in with her Southern voice, blessed, hype, beautiful singer, by the way, but also whenever you are 12 and 13 years old and it's 7 a.m., you're not trying to have your mom tell you to get up and give God the glory.
No.
I will give God the glory about noon.
What are those Bible verses about parents? Don't make it difficult for your children.
That's right. Don't cause them wrath. Don't make them angry.
Yes,
I don't
absolutely.
know. That's so funny. Okay. So last question. If you were not a speech therapist and being a mom does not count, what dream job do you think would be fun to do?
6-year-old Amanda would say, astronaut ballerina, of course. Like, I would have been like, Captain Picard, let's go. Like, we're going to go places, but never wear a red shirt, right? Total nerd here. And business side of me would be like, I would love to be someone who is a Lean Six Sigma person so that I could help homeschool moms and homeschool dads do better with their businesses so they can spend more time at home with their children. That would be really cool. But then the other part of me that just really enjoys the brain, the speech language pathologist side of me, a neuropsychologist, because there's a shortage of them and the homeschool space needs more of that. I know an educational psychologist that I really have her insight on things, but I would love, love, love a homeschool parent that was a neuropsych. That would be really cool.
Man, that would be good because you're so right. I love anything that has to do with the brain. It's just fascinating.
So interesting.
And
I'm
really
so grateful that my scope of practice plays over in that area too, because it means that I get to work on some of those things sometimes. But there's a limit of how far you can go. So
that's right. That's awesome.
Well, a naturopath. We could do that. What about a naturopathic neuroscientist? Whoa. Hey, if we're going to drink, we're going to drink big.
We might be. So before we go, is there anything else that you would like to share, or a word of encouragement, or anything else that you'd like to share to our listeners?
I think word of encouragement, I always like to give those. If you are feeling like you're not enough or you can't spend enough time, keep thinking about the other options. Public school, Christian school, I remember the amount of dead space there was. You don't have to fill every moment to be a great homeschool mom. And your child, they're going to need different things than your other child because, that keeps it fun and exciting. I have 4. I know, it does. But you are enough and you love them the most and you are their best teacher. So rest confidently in that. I know you probably don't get to talk to very many second-generation homeschoolers, but I've met enough of them to know that if we had a good experience with homeschooling, aka we have a healthy relationship with our parents usually, it was a good thing and we wouldn't change it. There we are.
That's awesome. Thank you. That just encouraged me. So I love hearing that. I just love it. Tell everybody, where can they find you?
Okay, so www.illuminatecommunicate.com. That is where you can find me.
Well, thank you again, Amanda. I have loved to talk to you today, and I just know that everybody else is going to appreciate everything that you've shared, and we will see you soon.
All right, I'll see you soon.